What's up, peeps and bleeps? This is Immortal Mage back with Ouroboros Sequencer here to show off the tone mode. So this is going to be a demo, not a walkthrough. So I've already got it set up here on, if I open up Ouroboros, I have track 1 set up with the pure piano. And I've got track 2 set up with the Phoenix. So for the purposes of getting ourselves ready to show off the tone mode today, this guy, I'm just going to set up a quick chord progression. I'm going to do it by going to my chord blocks. Okay, and I'm going to stretch that. And all right. So I've got that going. So I'm going to spend most of my time in track 2 to show off the tone mode, because the tone mode, at its simplest, it can shift steps up and down, a step. It can shift notes up and down a step or an octave, the notes coming out of the sequencer. But what it's really good for is, and like where its power really comes from, are these 3 modes down here and its ability to interact within tracks. So to make or set up examples of track 2 interacting with track 1. So if you're used to a DAW or other sequencers, this might be called note intercept, or it might just be setting up the proper routings. You can already do this in AUM by going, by using basically this routing menu, and I could set up pure piano as the source. But what makes Ouroboros different and extra powerful is that this isn't done at a song or a track level, it's done at a pattern level. So as you're arranging scenes and experimenting, you could have track 2 watching track 1 in one pattern, and then it could be watching track 4 and playing completely different notes in another pattern. Then it could be playing like a pattern from its own sequence. And then in another scene, it can go back to track 1, but maybe track 1's now looking at track 7, which has a completely different pattern. So in this way, you can start to really just like grab around and pull layers from every direction and swap them back and forth and turn them into putty in your hands and start to bend them in a, hopefully eventually a predictable way, but at the beginning, a very fluid and creative opportunity to start to develop foundations. And as you kind of find areas that you like, you can capture that as part of a scene. And then as you get those scenes developed in the future, when the song mode comes out, that's when you can really solidify everything in stone and start to develop your own songs. So with that said, let me walk you through exactly what's going on here. So I'm going to lay down this note. And I'm going to just slide to mute that from up here. I could also mute it by, we'll mute it from within here. I can hold this guy and press that to mute track 1. I could also go here and press mute. But anyways, going back to track 2, we've got that. If I go to tone mode, I can use the step and the octave shift to change the tone up and down of everything coming out of that sequence. So I'll raise it 3 steps. And now I'll raise it an octave in 3 steps. Any transformations done anywhere within this sequencer are always done in scale. So this is not, 3 semitones up. This is 3 steps in the current scale up. So if you're at a C and you're playing a major C, it would be, 1 step to D, 2 to E, 3 to F. Moving on, you then have this poly and this poly mode opportunity. So with the poly, you can go play all the notes from the sequencer, you can mono it, and you can go anywhere from 2 to 7. That hits the full range of all 8 notes that can be in a single step. And then you can choose which notes you play. An example of the settings that you selected are reflected in this graphic below. So right now I can play like maybe the highest note. So this becomes really powerful in combination with the play and the mix mode, which basically allow you to take the notes from another track, dissect them, and then continue to transform them with the ARP and the Prism mode. You can then apply this over multiple tracks, and all of a sudden, instead of having one instrument playing your chords, you can have 4 instruments playing each part of the chord a different way to create a rhythmically interesting harmonic sorry, verse or section or just whatever sound. Okay, so in the watch mode, moving back down to the sequencer and what we've got going on with the watch, the play, and the mix mode. The first is the watch mode. You generally will click the mode to select which one is active, and then you'll always need to select a trig to apply a source. So you're working within track 2, but I need to apply a source track to watch. So I'm going to press track 1. You can see that it lights up and it gives me the watch graphic. To disable it, I can either press the watch mode again, I can press my track, or I can press the active graphic. So now if I go to sequence, you'll see that I have my note playing, but I also have these notes with squares. These notes with squares are the same notes that are being played in track 1. So this way I can see exactly what's going on between the two tracks, and I can lay down patterns that relate between them. Going back to the tone mode, we can move forward. So the watch mode is really the simplest. The play mode allows you to intercept the notes that are being played from the sequence of another track. So when I use play mode and I select track 1 as my source, I'm going to turn all of these off and set it back to poly. You'll see immediately that my original sequence, the one note I had here, disappears. I'm now ignoring the sequence that was originally a part of track 2, and I'm only looking at the sequence from track 1. So I'll press play. So now I can play those notes. One of the creative choices made in this device was to set up the note play or the note intercept mode to take notes from the sequence before the sequence length settings, before the tone, and before the ARP settings are applied. This means on my track 1, if I unmute this, I can go up here and I can select different shift amounts, and I can turn on the ARP. And you'll hear that the piano will change, but the track 2 will continue to play the original notes that it's intercepting from the sequence. The only thing that can change those are the sequence themselves. And the same is true in the reverse. I can go back to track 2 and I can lower the notes, and I can say set up a mono, and now I'll be effectively playing a bass. Maybe even I'd turn on the ARP, and I'll set it to 16ths, and I'll lower the choke. So using just this play intercept mode, the ARP, and filtering out different notes, you can create entire songs. Like, I can't express enough how powerful this feature is and how much joy I get out of using it. A lot of the times I'll only have notes in a single track, and I'll spend a lot of time using the chord block mode and the various modes to create a chord progression that I love. And then everything else will just be a play on that, and I'll use that to develop an entire idea. So that's the play mode. The other thing that I want to express that makes the play mode super powerful, and I kind of touched on it before, besides the fact that it works between patterns, so I can show that here. If I go to pattern 2, I'm back between this sequence. In fact, I can even go within pattern 2, set play mode, and I can play, track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if I go back to pattern 1, I'll go back to watching track 1 as my source and playing the notes from there. If I go to track 3, I'm back to using a fresh pattern, which is the sequence itself. But the other thing you can do is you can go here and I can set up my sequence settings. So maybe I just want to play one bar. Now, even though I've selected track 1 as my source, I'll only play the first bar from that track. So in this way, you can limit the bars, or you can use the loop settings to start to just play portions of the tracks that you're watching. In the future, you'll be able to apply the play directionality of the sequencer and the speed settings, so you can slow down the sequence, to half, quarter, or triple times to add more variation on the notes that you're playing or the sequence that you're playing from another track. Oh yeah, I was going to show that. So you can hear the bass never changes. This is because I'm just looping the first bar. So moving forward, I'm going to show off the final mode, which is mix mode. So mix mode is also going to take a source in the same way that the other modes do, but mix mode still gives you access to your sequencer. What mix mode doesn't give you access to is the tonal range, which is the note values in the sequence. You can see on the right, the keypad has changed and I no longer have access to like C, D, E, F, G. Instead, I have access to length and velocity. What the mix mode does is turn track 2 basically into a rhythmically focused track. I set up my rhythm here. So maybe I'll lay down some 16th notes and a quarter note, and I can change the velocity. The whole idea is that I can quickly set up a rhythm. I can go to my tone mode. I can select a source. I'm going to remove the polyphonic settings again. And sorry, my dog. And the device will know that, hey, I'm going to play the rhythm of this sequence to the note values that are coming out of this sequence. And you can hear that here. You can also hear that the track is respecting the individual length, the velocity, and if I had set it, the chance and the every condition put in the rhythm effects. I can also continue to transform the rhythm the same way that I can in play mode through the tones intercept by taking just the lowest notes, or any section of notes. I can go further and I can apply the ARP too, which I guess I already had running, which is why we weren't hearing the whole chord. So here, I'll show you that. Why? Oh, there we go. I'm like, you should be able to hear the whole chord. I must have set something up. So this is a way that you can then take the tone that you have playing, apply more rhythmic variation, and then transform the tone and the rhythm and the tone again through the Prism mode in layers and layers of transformation in just a single pattern. You can then go back to your tone mode and maybe flip and apply a different source. There's a ton of fun that you can have switching between these modes and using just a single source, or maybe even a few. Maybe you have like a chord source and a melodic source and a bass source, and everything outside of that is playing off of those. But generally, I would say the mixer settings are set in the background. They're a configurable option. For Ouroboros, they're up front. They're the second most important thing in front of the sequencer, and they're there for a reason. This whole device was built on the idea of interactivity, and separating tone and rhythm is one of the most powerful elements of that I have available to me when I'm working just with MIDI notes. I'll get more opportunities as I eventually step into MIDI CC and maybe into sound one day. But with what it is currently, that is where the crux of a lot of the creative freedom comes from, and I really encourage you to go out and explore it. So I hope this video gives you an understanding of how to use the tone mode, watch, play, mix, how they're individually available across your patterns and scenes. One thing that I really wanted, or I should have noted at the beginning, because of how they're set up, there's opportunities for feedback, and that would basically ruin or crash the device. So for example, if I say, hey, I want you to play track 1, but if I go to track 1 and I say, I want you to play track 2, they're saying, hey, which track do I play? There's no track to play and you want me to play each other. You'll see that this changes to an exclamation point, and you'll see it on both of those. In that case, neither track will play anything, but they'll continue to check for a valid setup as you change the patterns or the routings through the tone modes. In the future, I'll also give you the ability to press and hold, and it'll explain exactly what's causing the issue. You can go there and change it. So this is an unfortunate consequence of a lot of the complexity that really comes from flexible routing, but hopefully it doesn't emerge too much unless you start getting really wicked and crazy with it. And once it does, it shouldn't cause too much of an issue and it's easily fixable. But I hope you found this an informative video and you get a lot of a lot of creativity out of it. Let me know if you have any questions or feedback or anything else, or if you'd like to see anything added to the mode. Hope you have a great day. Have fun building.